Hello everyone, I just wanted to go through an example of how to complete the Holistic Intrapartum Assessment Tool to hopefully make this process a little bit easier for everyone using the tool to understand what we're doing. So this is the tool. It has had some changes from when we originally introduced it a month ago. These changes have been made following feedback that we received from users after they've fed back to us through the QR code in the bottom right corner. So the Holistic Intrapartum Assessment Tool, just of note, escalation we've noted to be as per Muse and CTG Trust guidance. So when escalation is required, that's what we should be following. So the made-up case, we've got a patient called Mary Duquesne. She has attended for assessment as she is in spontaneous labour after she ruptured her membranes the previous evening and has started contracting regularly and is very keen to have an epidural. So triage is busy, so she comes over to labour ward for assessment given she's asking for an epidural, and we start using the tool. So she is 39 plus 3, para 1, and we start using the tool on the 20th of February at 1:30 in the afternoon. We go through the history and we see that the only risk factor she has is that she's a VBAC. Therefore, in the key risk factors and the cumulative score, we input at the time of arrival a total score of 1. If she had more risk factors, let's say she had GBS as well, that would be an additional risk factor, so then we would put here 2. So keeping it simple now, VBAC 1 risk factor. So we do our baseline assessments, so new score 0. We do our risk assessment for the best method of fetal monitoring. Given the risk factor of VBAC, she classes as the need for having continuous electronic fetal monitoring, so we tick that box. If for any reason the woman would be declining monitoring, then that's why you have these boxes next to that assessment where you can tick declined monitoring. Or if she declined continuous but wanted intermittent, you could tick the box next to it. Regardless of what happens, the recommendation should be what we recommend doing, even if the woman doesn't want to follow it. But then these 2 boxes help us explain a little bit more of what the situation is. So anyway, continuing into the partogram, we do our baseline assessment. We find that she's 4 centimeters dilated, clear light core contracting 3 in 10. So we get our anaesthetic colleagues to come and site the epidural. So she has the epidural at 2:30, and then that increases her risk factors to 2. So at 1 hour that she's arrived from 1:30 when she first arrived, 2:30, she now has 2 risk factors, and we input that down here. We continue doing our assessments. Given that she's got an epidural, she will need ongoing regular observations. So at 1 hour observations, new score is still 0, CTG remains normal, and obviously we're not going to examine her on an hourly basis, so those parts of the partogram that are linked with a vaginal examination we will leave blank, but we can complete parts of it. So we can say that the light core remains to be clear, contractions are 3 in 10, baseline is stable, and we've got our urine output and fluid intake that we can complete as we monitor it. So we continue with labour, and we see that at 3 hours we notice that she has now ruptured her membranes over 24 hours. Therefore, in the 3rd hour of labour that she's been with us, her cumulative risk score goes up to 3. 4 hours after we first examined her, we do our next assessment. So in the partogram, we input our vaginal examination findings. We find that she hasn't really made any progress, and we note that over the last few hours her contractions have started to slow down as well. We therefore have, following appropriate counselling, the woman is very keen for vaginal birth, and after discussing pros and cons, she agrees to proceed with Synto augmentation. So the decision is made to commence oxytocin, and that starts at 6:30. So Synto starts, and that makes her risks come up to 4. We continue with labour. The next hour we notice that her CTG becomes suspicious. Note here that these boxes, as you know, are hourly assessments. So here where it says oxytocin rate, you would have expected it to have gone up to 12, as we would increase every half an hour, but obviously it's been from 3 to 6. So probably because of the CTG being suspicious, they have not been able to go up with the Synto further. Conservative measures are taken due to the suspicious CTG, and then that recovers, and then labour continues, and we increase the Synto. 3 hours down the line is the next time for the next examination. She has a further examination where she has again not made any progress. CTG has been normal, however, her contractions have started picking up. And we note that the Synto has not really been increased. So decision is made to continue increasing the Synto and monitor how we progress. So in the next couple of hours, after 2 hours, a CTG is classified again as suspicious. The Synto had gone up to 12, but had to come back down to 6. And the midwives do conservative measures in view of the suspicious CTG. However, in the next hour, not much change has occurred, so there are ongoing concerns with the CTG, and obviously that brings up an additional risk for her. So CTG concerns are called at half midnight, and that will increase her cumulative risk score to 5. And the oxytocin has been decreased further. Escalation at this stage has been made to the doctors, who were busy with another case, and by the time they were able to come, it was time for her next assessment. So the doctors examine her. She has barely progressed any further. Her contractions have started to slow down again. The oxytocin had been turned off in view of the CTG remaining suspicious. And we'll stop there. The doctors will make a very appropriate plan, I am sure, after involving the patient in their decision for their care. So this is essentially how a completed Holistic Intrapartum Assessment Tool would look. So you can see that if you were doing your ward round and it was at the 12th hour, you could be asking the midwife for the tool, and by just having it in your hand, you can have a look, see how the mom has been, see how the CTG has been behaving over the last 12 hours, what the progress is, how have the contractions been, what has the oxytocin been pushed up to, or how have we responded to it, and be able to make an assessment, an overall assessment of what's been happening. And at the same time, you can be reviewing what were the risk factors at the onset of labour that she had, and where are we now with the risk factors. So hopefully this was easier to understand through an example. Please start asking for the tool during ward rounds. It will prompt midwives to start using it more, and hopefully they will see the value, and you will see the value of it as we go on. Obviously this will be going on Cerner hopefully at some point, but ideally we want to optimize what we want in the tool before we ask them to build it. Any questions, please feel free to contact me, happy to discuss further. And don't forget your QR code for your feedback if you want to. Thank you.